Sparking Change for Harmonious Living is a TV show that inspires action. It motivates you to start a journey towards a more balanced, fulfilling life. This show explores well-being through spirituality, mental clarity, and physical health. It covers topics like mindfulness, nutrition, fitness, and spirituality, giving you practical advice to enhance your life. Tune in for a transformative adventure that ignites the change you seek.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change for Harmonious Living. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone.
And I'm your co-host, Ahmed Bahman.
And today we're going to continue with the word thrive, and we're going to go with the first word, T for transformation. And this is what the show is about. It's really getting connected with how do we transform to become a better version of ourselves, right, Ahmed?
Absolutely.
And so let's talk about transformation, like just the same way as a caterpillar transforms into a beautiful butterfly with the changes that it makes. How can we do the same?
Well, it all starts with thought.
Mm,
What do I want to transfer to? What do I wish to become in the process of whatever goal that I may have in front of me or
yes.
within me? And it also has to do with our habits. Now, a thought repeated or entertained forms a certain amount of emotion. Now, if we maintain that level of consecutive way of thinking, we will eventually maintain that consecutive way of feeling. And
Yes.
this is what is going to help the body to move in that direction for us
Mm,
to achieve the things that we desire and basically establish a new understanding that whatever habits we have, we can change it. But it's the repetition
of
that
course.
requires discipline for us to do so.
I love that because without changing the little habits, Bob Proctor always said a multitude of habits are paradigms, right? So if we have these paradigms that are holding us back, we truly have to create a paradigm shift with all these little habits that we have that keep us the same, right? In order to transform, it means to change. So if you
Yes,
want change in your life, you need to start with these little habits to create new ones and better ones that would help us to move in the direction that we want to be in.
absolutely. And when you look at the word transformation, now we understand, okay, transformation is basically to transform from one state to another,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think it was Newton's law when he stated that energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be transformed. Now, everything is made up of energy. Now, if you look at this cup, for example, at a point of time, it was glass. I mean, it's made of glass, but it was sand.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened that heat was applied to it.
Right.
Now, similar thing with water is the way our late mentor Bob Proctor mentioned. He said, there are three states of water. Can be either, if you lower the temperature, you can turn it into ice. But if you
Yeah.
increase its temperature, it can turn to steam. So we got solid, liquid, and gas. Now, for human beings, we can transform as well. We can transform physically. You can see a lot of people changing their entire body figure by being disciplined
Of
with
course.
the ideal image that they have held in their mind for so long. They've maintained it. They've triggered the necessary emotions, and it was not basically, they were not feeling like they were pressured to go to the gym. You see, when you reprogram your mind, you would end up doing it anyway, because anything you put your mind to, you'll end up doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And same thing goes with the mind. We have a habitual way of thinking, and this is the root area of where you really need to focus. Now, the physical is the territory part, or the third area to this, which goes after the emotions, but the main thing is where you need to focus is your thoughts. And you need to have a goal. A goal is your northern star,
What you're aiming for, right?
what you're aiming for. As Bob always said, you have to know what is it that you want, and you
Hmm.
have to want it bad enough.
And that's where the transformation really happens, because you begin to commit to yourself, have discipline, persevere the challenges that come through, right? There's so many things that go along with once you decide, make a decision that you want to change, then you can create the plan, right? But making a decision is, you mentioned before about your physical body changing. For those who make a decision that they want to lose 20 pounds, they will start eating differently. They will start to exercise. They will say no to the Twinkie and the cupcakes, right? Because they made a decision, a committed decision to themselves. And no matter what, I remember watching something where they said, put your favorite outfit like in front of you. Like there was this guy who actually wanted to lose, like, I don't know, 50 or 100 pounds. I forget what it was. So he went out and he bought a suit that actually was the size that he wanted to be in. And he would wake up every morning looking at that suit, visualizing himself wearing that suit. So he prepped his mind, like you just said, he prepped his mind every morning to say, I'm going to be that size. I'm going to fit into that suit. And it eventually did happen.
You just reminded me a story. There was a show on Oprah Winfrey, and there was one of the guests was there, and he used to be overweight, and he had a goal. He wanted to become slim, just so he could fit in a Porsche Boxster. That was his dream car.
Mm.
And surely he by the time he was a guest on that show, he was already at that right size to be so.
Mm.
And guess what? Oprah gifted him with that car.
No,
Yes.
she
If you look it
definitely,
up,
really, I can see her doing that. She did that in a lot of shows, right? But yeah,
absolutely.
you have to prepare yourself mentally. I mean, that's what we're talking about here is, and how do you do that? You do that with your thoughts.
And there's another thing. It's like when people look at others, for example, they transform their life. You see, when you look at another person, you think it's, he's lucky, he's done that. But no, this person was disciplined mentally, and they understood how the laws work. I want to mention a one of the verses from the Bible, Romans 12:2. It says, "And be not conformed to this world." Like you don't have to be like everyone else. All of those that you see that have made it in life and they became successful is because they did something different. It says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed." Transformed by what? By the renewing of your mind. That's powerful.
Beautiful. Yeah. When I studied Think and Grow Rich, and it was all about um, being in control of the thoughts, right? Thoughts become things. And I even go back and my late mentor, Bob Proctor, when I studied Thinking into Results, it was just talking about how we can think differently if we begin to change the habits that we have. And that's where transformation happens. Because there's infinite ways of looking at something, and our perception of that situation, if we only see it from one way, then that means you're limiting yourself of all the other possibilities that are out there. So the transformation occurs when you're actually a more open-minded, more willing to receive that there is another way,
Absolutely. And
right?
more willing to learn. This is another key factor. See, everybody wants to change or wants the change, but they don't want to change because they don't want to go through the learning curve. I want to mention a little phrase, a quote by Eric Hoffer. It strikes me every time I read it. He said, in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. Since everybody who's listening to this, since you were a child, and as you were growing up through adolescence and into your adulthood, how many times did you see the city that you're in or society transform as a whole? If we're not catching up, we're basically left behind. We'll be living, to deal with a world that no longer exists. But we need to learn, we need to understand. It was one time Zig Ziglar stated, he said there was a timber lumberjack man, or a person that cuts down the trees. He was earning good money cutting down trees. And one day he ran out of business. And the reason was that he forgot to sharpen his axe.
Yeah, right.
Life
Because
is like that.
yeah, it's you said it before that a lot of people already put in their mind that change is hard. But it's one little change. This book here that I showed last week, and I'll show it again. It's called Atomic Habits, right, from James Clear. It literally says that little tiny change that you make, if you do it every day, you'll see the biggest change in 30 days.
Yeah.
And it's
It's,
just making that decision that because change happens with us. You cannot expect the world to change and your results be different in your life. Even if you get a new job, different people, you'll still have the same feelings that that you need something more. So change is always a process that starts within. You ever seen there is a YouTube video? I wish I can play it. It's called The Rebirth of an Eagle.
yeah.
And the eagle, if I'm saying this correctly, the eagle is 70 years old. And in order to survive another 40 years, am I saying this right?
I think it was at 40 years old, but then to survive another,
40 years or something like
yes,
that? Yeah. Okay. It had to rip off its its
beak.
first his beak and then his talons. I forget. And regrow a new beak so that he can survive. So
To
he
go
had
and
to go
hunt
through
again.
some pain in the transformation in order to live another 40 years. And to me, I feel like that's the same thing that we need to do in order to live a better life. We need to go through some pain through the transformation. I know I went through it, you went through it. And the point is that as long as you commit to yourself, it can be done.
And it's beautiful the way you mentioned it, because you have to go through pain. Okay, if you look at objects, they go through something similar, but in a different perspective, called heat, right?
Mm,
You
yeah,
want to have the best stainless steel, right? But you
yeah,
gotta transmute it with that fire. Otherwise,
absolutely.
it's not gonna become refined. So every time that you go under the heat in life and you start to learn something, because you never actually fail in something. You're
Yeah,
either you're either winning at something or you're learning something. When I say fail, I like to leave it at, stated as that's the first attempt in learning. So now you're under some heat. But when you start to after fail, after the word fail, you're basically stepping into the second attempt on learning. But guess what? You got experience now.
Of course, there's no learning without making mistakes. So,
No.
there's definitely a misconception of what the word failing means, which, some people take that and internalize it as like they're the failure. And the truth of the matter is, you're actually the winner because you tried something that
Yeah.
that did not work.
Yes.
So again, it's how many, how many ways we can look at something, right? The perception of something has different meanings for different people. But if you're looking to change your story, right? If every day you're saying the same story, you're not feeling happy, you're not feeling successful, you're not feeling whatever it is that you're not feeling, then that's a giveaway that it's time for change, right? Or so it's a decision that, okay, I'm ready for change. So what do you do? What's the first thing you do? And for me, it was like look online and then figure out who can, whether it was a life coach or something that can help me, or I needed to do some self um, healing or whatever it was for me to go through my transformation and
Yes.
accept it as a process of getting to where you want to be, because
And
no one
and
can take you there but you.
absolutely, you're responsible for you. And everything that you set your goal as, it comes at the cost of personal growth at the same time.
Right.
Why? Because you have to match that frequency.
Right.
It has to fit in as a harmonic resonance. You see,
Mhm.
we never attract what we want in life, but we always attract who we are in life.
Absolutely.
State of being is
Right.
is is the key to being.
And when we say we attract who we are and what we feel, that is coming from the inside.
Yes.
How we feel is an internal state. So we attract things to us based on our internal state. No different if I'm walking down a dark alley and I feel like I'm going to get mugged, right? My internal state is fear. Something's going to happen to me. Sure enough, I bet you someone's going to come in and, take my bag or something, right? Because that's the internal state that I'm feeling, and I'm magnetizing that energy. So it works the same way with our thoughts.
Yeah.
It works the same way, the way we feel. So the transformation um, that is made, if you want to thrive, it's something that it's inner work that needs to be done. Make a decision to do the inner work that helps us to really excel and move forward.
And in the beginning, you may feel that uh, you have a lot of resistance. If you feel that you have a lot of resistance, it's because you have not accepted the idea yet. But surely, once you repeat the process of maintaining that as a consecutive thought and tuning it with your feelings, it does sink in into your subconscious, which then it will allow you to behave differently towards that idea. And therefore, everything starts to become a little bit effortless.
So let's discuss a few steps that they can take in the transformation process. I mean, for me, the first thing I would say is writing down gratitude. 5 things you're grateful for every morning. Starting with that is a crucial beginning your day, right? And then,
Writing your gratitude, writing your goal,
mm-hmm.
define what does it look like for you, how does it make you feel, and make sure that it is in present tense, because your subconscious does not understand what is in the future or what is in the past. Anything you're thinking of, and then you're tuning into it with your emotions, it's taking it as facts. With your conscious mind, you can create ideas, you can accept ideas, and you can reject ideas, but your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious takes in everything. So this is why the mental discipline is so important. Um, One thing that I realized with Bob, he started to mention is that at a point in his life, he was earning $4,000 a year. That's when he first started, when he met Ray Stanford, and
Mm-hmm.
he was owing $6,000. And he said, if I would save for 18 months straight and have nothing to live on, then I could pay my debt. Uh, he said, my problem was that I was always thinking of debt. He said, if you think of debt, you're never going to get out of debt. He said, but when I met Ray Stanford and he gave me the book Think and Grow Rich, and I started applying the 6 steps mentioned in that book. And if you read that book, in every chapter there is the secret. And if you find it, as the book states, you can have whatever you want in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, I wrote what I wanted. I wrote the amount. I gave myself a decade to have that kind of money. I think he said that he wanted $25,000. And he said, I wrote it on a goal card, and I went to, my regular work or wherever he was
Mm-hmm.
between his peers and friends. And he said one day you know, they found the card that he had, his goal card, and people started laughing at him. But he didn't let that bother him too much because he was on a different path. And he said, gradually, the very first year, I took it to $125,000. Now he's given himself a decade, but he said within 2 years he took it to over 1 million. Now, what's interesting, what
Yeah.
what he mentioned, he said, what the goal card did for me was the more I looked at it, and as it was advised to me to look at it frequently throughout the day, he said instead of thinking of debt, I was thinking of how to earn money. So the triggering mechanism of linking on the debt frequency was getting diminished as the prosperity frequency was coming up. And
Right.
that just changed his entire world because he changed the way he looked at the world from within,
So beautiful.
and it
And he
transformed.
he he taught that to so many people, right? To help them do the same. And that's why it's so important that we do write this goal every morning. That even though you might have no idea how it's going to happen, when your mind is in that direction, the circumstances, the people, the things you need will begin to move themselves. There's a quote that I love that you know by heart that you say. Which one is that?
It's by Neville Goddard. He said, "But you reach to a state of belief."
Mm-hmm.
He said, when your belief matches with any state, you fuse with it. You really like hold on tight to it. You fuse with that
Mm-hmm.
idea with all your emotions. He said this union results in the activation and projection of the plots, plans, conditions, and circumstances. And he said that new state of conscious awareness. Now it's an
Yes.
awareness. Awareness is all there is. That new state of conscious awareness becomes your home from which you view the world. And if you're observant, you're going to see outer reality shaping itself upon the model of your imagination. Why? Because now you're working with a new blueprint. The
That's
old
exact.
blueprint is obsolete.
That's right. And that's exactly what transformation is all about. Is creating a new blueprint for your life. And it all starts with the changes that you want to make. Like you do get to write the script. You
Yeah.
are the director, the director and the actor and the movie of your life. You get to write it.
As Bob said, you grab the idea and the thoughts from the ether and you put it down with ink. And the moment you write it down, you decree your destiny.
That's so beautiful. Beautiful. So it takes a decision,
A
it takes
decision.
commitment, it takes self discipline, and it takes controlling the thoughts. Being in control of your thoughts is where success can happen and the transformation occur. Any final thoughts?
Yes. If you find an opportunity that's going to help you transform and it requires an investment and you think it's a lot, just think how much it would cost you not to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're looking for transformation, you want to have a session with either of us, we're here to help you. That's what we're here to do. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm your host, Giovanna Tardarone.
I'm your co-host, Ahmed Bahman. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change for Harmonious Living. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change for Harmony.